Hi Bude, Oma is back. I'm going to show you today how to do the purl stitch. Before we will start with the purl stitch, I would go for everyone who hasn't seen my first video through a quick review to show all the single steps we have done in the Continental Knitting, the Oma Way, in the first video. I would like you to pick up your needles, take your ball of cotton yarn, and we will start with how to hold the yarn while casting on stitches. You leave a short tail about 30-40 inches. You take your ball of yarn, go between pinky and ring finger from the inside, lead the yarn around on the outside around your pointing finger, wrap it twice, go on the inside from down up, wrap it around your thumb and go back to your pinky. You close your hands, pick up 2 of the knitting needles, you need both of them. Go underneath the yarn on the thumb, pick up the yarn on your index finger and pull the yarn through. Once you have pulled the yarn through, you drop the stitch and stretch underneath the yarn and you have your first stitch. Again, underneath, pick up the yarn on the index finger, pull it through, drop the stitch, stretch the yarn underneath and you have your second stitch. You continue till you have reached the stitches which you would like to have. The second stitch is the actually knit stitch and how to hold the yarn and beat the yarn while doing your knit stitch. After you have cast on your stitches, you hold one needle on the tip and pull the other needle out. You take the needle with the work, go with the yarn again between pinky and ring finger, go on the outside, wrap around index finger, and you hold the needle as I have shown in the first video, the Oma Way, which means pinky and ring finger hold the needle. You have it on the edge of the hand so that it is stabilized. You come with unit 2, which is ring finger and thumb. Hold the work, push the stitches up front so that you have less than an inch between the tip of the left needle and stretch your index finger who holds, leads and controls the yarn. You pick up your second knitting needle, hold it in the right hand exactly as I have shown it with the left hand. Unit 1, pinky and ring finger hold the needle. Unit 2, middle finger and thumb hold the needle on front, and you are ready to start knitting your first knit stitch. You need to remember that the first stitch and the last stitch are called the edge stitches. And during my first video I have tried to teach you already it is important that you learn right from the beginning how to knit the edge stitches. It will be very helpful when you start to knit pieces together. The first and the last stitch, even if you learn later in this movie the purl stitch, will always be the right stitch, which we say in German. In the American call it the knit stitch. You will always pick up the first stitch on the needle pick it up without knitting it, just drop it from the left needle, and the last stitch always will be knitted. When you turn around your work, you start again, pick up the first stitch as a knit stitch without knitting, and so on and so on, and you repeat it each row. Even if you do the purl stitches, or later when you are more experienced, patterns in a different a stitch combination, you always do the first and the last stitch straight, first stitch, pick it up and drop it without knitting, last stitch right, or the knit stitch. And now you can start with the knit stitch again. The first stitch, as I just said, you drop down, you help with the right index finger and push a little against the left needle. The first row is always very hard to knit. And then you start, go into the stitch, wrap around the yarn on from the left index finger and take the stitch down. Again, go from underneath into the stitch on the left needle, pull the yarn through and drop it. Again, underneath, pull the yarn through and drop it. Again, you continue and do this till you have finished your row. The next step is how to cast off, how to bind off. I just finished this row, and you start again. Binding off, you take the first stitch down, knit the second stitch, take it down, cross the needle over the second stitch into the first stitch and pull the first stitch through. Again, make your knit stitch, take it down, go with the left needle into the first stitch, pull the second stitch through and take it down. Again, knit the second stitch, cross the needles, go into the first stitch, pull the second stitch down and drop it. This till here you have learned how to do the knit stitch, how to do the cast on, and how to do the bind off, including the edge stitch, which is very important. You are now ready to learn how to do the purl stitch. To start with the purl stitch, you would need, for the materials which I have described in the first video, you would need 2 more tools that will be very helpful, which is a pair of knitting needles, again single pointed 10 inches in size 2, and you would need some safety pins which you can get in plastic in arts and crafts stores or in wool shops or yarn stores. And you can get them in different colors, so you can pick and choose, and that would be added tools that will help you later on, and you will also then understand why. You are ready now to start with the purl stitch. I have already prepared having some stitches on the needle. You have cast on your stitches, pull out again the second needle, go in position with your yarn between ring finger and pinky, wrap around, and by now you should even have it in your feeling how to wrap it, how to place the yarn without looking at it. You hold your left needle, you take the right needle in your hand, and now it becomes tricky, and sorry, but I have forgotten my chitter-boom, that is always very important, which is the row counter. So now I'm ready. Again, take your yarn, bring it in position and your needle. You take your right needle, and you have to focus here a bit more than with the knit stitch because of the edge stitches. You take the first stitch down like you would do the knit stitch. Instead of having the yarn now in the back of the left needle, you bring the yarn up in front of your needle. With the knit stitch you have the yarn in the back. With the purl stitch you bring the yarn in front of the needle. The left index finger has now a different job to do. Instead of kind of ignoring him because he is only holding the yarn, he has now some work to do. The right hand is picking up the stitches. The left index finger actually wraps around the yarn on the right needle and helps to lead the yarn through the stitch on the left needle to pull it through. You go with the right needle into the stitch on the left needle, and now you bring the yarn underneath the right needle with your left index finger. You pull the yarn through the stitch, you stretch the left index finger again and take your stitch down. Again, you come from above into the needle behind the yarn. Wrap with your left index finger the yarn around the right needle, pick it up with the right needle and take it down. Again, come from above, go into the stitch on the left needle, wrap with your left index finger the yarn around the right needle, pull it through, hold till you have it pulled through so that you are not going to lose it, and take the stitch down. Again, come from above, inside the stitch on the left needle, bring the yarn around the right needle with your left index finger and take it down. You need to watch and look that you always have the yarn from the left hand in front of the left needle, not behind. That would be a knit stitch. You bring it in front and that is your purl stitch. Again, go in, wrap it around the needle, take it down. Make sure that the distance between the right needle and the yarn on the left index finger is not too far, so that you actually can easily grab your yarn on the left index finger. And the distance is actually also depending on how flexible your hands are. Some people are more flexible than others, but with time and with practice you will figure out what would be the right position and distance for you. And now you are close to the last stitch. Once you have reached that point, you take the yarn now behind the left needle, because you have to do your knit stitch, which is the edge stitch. You make the last stitch as the edge stitch, and as I had shown in my first movie, hold the needle, turn it around to make it easy on yourself, exchange the needles, go in position, and you have the yarn in the back. Even so, you learn right now the purl stitch. You go in, make the first stitch, go into this first stitch as you would like to do the knit stitch, take it down, and once you have it taken down, you go between the two needles and bring the yarn up in front. You continue then with your purl stitch. Come from above with the right needle, bring the yarn through the left stitch on the left needle, take it down. Go in from above with the right needle, wrap the yarn around the right needle and take it down. You continue till you have finished your row. And once you have finished your row, again, the last stitch, take the yarn in the back, make your knit stitch, turn your work around, and don't forget the click. And you will start all over again. First stitch, take it down, take the yarn up in front and do the purl stitch. Casting off the purl stitch is in principle the same as casting off the right stitch, except you have the yarn now in front. You make your purl stitch, take the stitch down, you cross again the second stitch and pull the first one through. Go in, do your purl stitch, go over, cross, pull the one stitch through and drop it down. And you continue till you have finished your row. What I am trying to teach you today as well is how to sew two pieces together. And for this reason, I would like you to knit in the purl stitch a washcloth, but this time a mitt, because you have then the chance to stitch the edge stitches, to sew the edge stitches together. What you would need to know is, after you have cleaned up your work, you have to sew the beginning and the end of your yarn into your washcloth. You will end up to have a back and a front side. To recognize it, since both sides of your washcloth will look the same, I want you to use one of your safety pins, which I have introduced to you, and just stitch them through one of the stitches on the wrong side or the back side of your work, so that you recognize this is as well the side where you have sewn in the beginning and end of your yarn, and that once you have sewn your washcloths together, you will not see it on the right side. Now I'm going to show you how to sew the edge stitches together. You have put your safety pin on the wrong side so that the right side is on the other side, and you don't sew the end and beginning of the yarn into the right side, you sew it into the wrong side. You fold now your washcloths in half. You have used 24 stitches for your washcloths. You knitted them for 104 rows and you bind them off in the 105th row. If you have folded then your washcloths, you can already recognize the shape of a mitt. And if you look then at the edge, you will nicely recognize your edge stitches. What you need to do, or what I would like you to do, is pick up one of your knitting needle size 1, start on the open end and pick up your edge stitches. I need to have my glasses now because I cannot see it. Okay, that's a lot better. So you pick up your edge stitches, you start on the open end with the knitting needle size 2. You could also do it without the needle, but I want to show you to get easier to how to sew it together while preparing your work, and also to understand what the edge stitches is and to recognize the difference between your purl stitch, your knit stitch and the edge stitch. So you pick up your edge stitches with one needle, and if you have knitted 105 rows, you will have on each of the sides 27 edge stitches. So you start, pick them all up, and you will end up there, and once you have your 27 edge stitches on the one needle, you pick up your second needle and do it on the other side exactly the same. Pick up the edge stitches again, 27, starting on the open end. Once you have taken your 27 stitches, edge stitches, onto your needles, you pick up your darning needle, and I will use now pink yarn to make it more visible to you what I'm going to do. You hold your both needles with the edge stitches, one on top of the other. Push the stitches up in front. You go with your darning needle from the right side into the first edge stitch and leave again a tail of 6-7 inches, which you will also sew then in the end into your work so that it's stable. Then you go into the next stitch on the needle below, come from the right side, stitches together. You don't take the stitches down, leave them where they are. You can have a little distance between the two needles. You go across into the edge stitch on the upper knitting needle. You go down from the right side in the next stitch on the lower needle, and you continue this work till you have reached the last stitch. One time you go on the lower needle into the edge stitch, then you go on top in the stitch, on the top needle in the stitch, coming from the right side. You go on the lower needle, and once you are done and have finished your edge stitches all the way up till the open end, you can pull both of the needles out and you will end up with your finished seam on the washcloth, as you can see here. And as you can recognize, it is almost like having done a new edge stitch, a new knitted stitch without having a too bulky seam. And once you are done, you also go then back, take the end and the beginning of the yarn, use your darning needle again, and you can easily sew the beginning and the end in the diagonal as I had shown you into your washcloth. One time up and the other time down. Your seam is completely done. You cut the loose end and you can turn around your washcloth. And as you can see, I leave on purpose the stitches in so that you can see the difference. As you can see, your stitch together, the edge stitches is done. You have a clean seam and your washcloth is finished. This was for today the second knitting video about how to do the purl stitch and how to stitch and sew the edge stitches together. I hope it was helpful for you. If you have any suggestions, as I have told you before, you are very welcome to leave a comment on my website or on YouTube. There will be more videos following those two, and I hope I will see you again. Tschüss, bye.